Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you as always from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. We encourage you, as always, to check them out. You can go to their website, www.thebamboozleproject.com, which is coming across your screen if you're watching the video feed of today's show. You can go on their website, order various MYPB gear. I will tell you, if you're even looking for non-MYPB gear, they have some pretty cool stuff up there. And the good news is, whether you get MYPB gear or not, our promo code works on everything on the website. That is, yeah, look at that. MYPB is the promo code to use when you go onto their website. That will get you 25% off your entire order, not one item, not free shipping, literally 25% off your entire bill, cut in half by using those magical four letters MYPB. You can send your questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com. You can also DM us at any time. The best way to do that is on the Instagram handle that we have, which is at Mind Your Puckin' Business on Instagram. We are always on there. We are always answering questions. And we appreciate you turning into the podcast itself. And you can listen to that on a variety of different platforms. Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube would be the ones that we would recommend you use. And you can find us there all the time. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
Not too shabby.
I feel like normally you and we talk when we're in here, but I've been doing work stuff. I haven't really spoken to you this morning at all, and we weren't on last week. So Absolutely. Memorial Day was good?
It was good. It was a national lacrosse championship. So you got a nice little, you got the semifinals and the final this weekend. And then the indoor lacrosse, their finals are starting. They had game 2 yesterday. So there was a lot of sports this weekend.
That is very, very cool. Yeah, lacrosse, I know, is always like a Memorial Day. You see it on ESPN. Who won it wasn't Penn State, right?
Notre Dame won the whole thing.
Got it.
Beat Duke. And then the Final Four was Virginia, Duke, Notre Dame.
I think it was Penn State.
Penn State, you are correct.
For some reason, I did see that. Okay.
Well, the National League is the indoor box lacrosse was the Buffalo Bandits and the Colorado Mammoth.
Good to know.
There you go.
Those are sports we don't cover here, the indoor box lacrosse league, but I'm glad you did that. We hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend out there, and we do thank you, as always, the people that serve this country, veterans and all that stuff. We thank you. We cannot thank you enough. So while you're out there grilling yesterday or whatever it is you're doing, always remember the reason you are off that day. It is not just a Jersey Shore kickoff weekend, as a lot of people seem to think it is in this area. There is a reason behind it, and it is that. So, all right. We're going to have a guest on in a couple minutes, and he's the perfect guest for today because the Rangers seem to be on the precipice right now of hiring a head coach. Now, This has gone on for, let's see, Gerard Gallant was fired 3.5 weeks ago. So Chris Drury has taken his time here, and all signs, I don't want to say all signs. That's the wrong word. The word out there seems to be that it is going to be Peter Laviolette. Now, do you want to believe that or not? I wouldn't bet my mortgage, because anybody who knows Chris Drury knows that he's a very quiet guy and he keeps things tight to the chest. Mm-hmm. So when I see any reports with the Rangers with anything ever, I'm always like, I don't know if I really want to believe that. I'm not saying they're wrong, because sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times when it comes to Chris Drury, he doesn't say a lot. So look, we're going to ask Johnny Lazarus in a minute here, his thoughts on this. But I just can't get excited about Peter Laviolette. I just cannot do it. Now, you want to play devil's advocate and say, all right, so if you're not excited about Peter Laviolette, who are you excited for that's out there? And I don't know that I have an answer, because I just think that, and you see this in professional sports a lot, it really, when you make a coaching change, you're really subject to whatever coaches are out there at that year, at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And right now in this year, in 2023, in the NHL free agent coaching pool, there's just not a lot out there. There's no hot candidate. Go ahead.
So then why not bring up the guy from the B League or whatever?
Knobloch. That is my choice.
For 1 year, temporary, like for a year. If he does good, you keep him on. You give him a 1 year contract.
Well, he would never. So a couple things. I like your thinking, but in the way the world, no one's going to sign a 1 year contract and be a lame duck. Now, you could sit there and sign a shorter term coaching deal, which is probably 3 years. I don't.
But at any point you can get fired, right?
Yeah, at any point you can get fired, but then you're owed the money, right? So if the Rangers were to fire you after a year and you had a 3 year deal, Knobloch is out on the beach on Aruba, cashing in on the remaining 2 years on his contract and getting paid. So coaches aren't going to sign a 1-year deal. I just look at it like it's very, very difficult for me to get excited about Peter Lavalette. This is the quintessential definition of a retread, right? I've sat here for the last couple of weeks, and a lot of people have actually agreed with us on Instagram with this, which is just don't go out and get a retread. Don't go out and get a retread. There's no bigger retread in the market than Peter Lavalette. I understand he's had a lot of success, right? The reason, I shouldn't say he's had a lot of success. He's had success. The reason he's had success is he's been a coach in the league, I think, every year for the past 19 years except one. He's always employed, which obviously is a good sign, right? Teams want him. He's obviously doing something right. But if you look at him in general, now the Rangers, I think, may make an announcement today, from what someone told me. But again, I'm not a source. Doesn't mean as to who it is. But I'm going to guess it's Lavalette. So if it is Peter Lavalette, here's my thoughts on him. The pros of Peter Lavalette is that he's experienced, right? He's been a coach in this league for a long time. That the risk you take in a first-time coach like Knobloch, which was my choice, is what if he can't adjust to the NHL? Peter Lavalette can adjust to the NHL. He's been here the whole time. He is system-based, unlike Gerard Gallant. He puts a huge emphasis, if you watch his teams, on the forecheck, which is what the Rangers, when they were most successful under Gallant in the 2 years, were doing. That's what they actually got away from, dumping the puck and forechecking in the Devils series when it all went south. So those are things that I like about Gallant. What I don't like are the two knocks that I've read about him. Is one, isn't really good at playing younger players, which I think should be the number one requirement or prerequisite for whatever coach they hire. Because at what point are you going to give Kakko and Lafreniere a chance to shine
when they're no longer younger players?
I mean, when they're right, when they're 33. So that to me is a problem. Now, someone made a good point, and I think he's the guy commenting Chris right now, which was that, look, whoever is going to hire, Chris Drury probably sat down and said, look, you've got to play the kids. Maybe you're not used to playing the kids, but you would think that that's a conversation Chris Drury has with whoever the head coach is. So maybe that's something that Lavalette will agree to do. The other thing I don't like about Lavalette is one of the knocks on him traditionally has been he is not really good at in-game adjustments. Now, if you're not good at in-game adjustments, where the entire Ranger Devils series went south was based on the fact that they couldn't adjust to all the changes the Devils made. We saw them make the changes in Game 3 at the Garden, and for the remaining 4 games of the series, the Rangers could never figure out a proper adjustment to counter, and therefore lost the series. So, I don't know. But again, I don't want to sit here like, and Chris brings up a good point that agents talk, other teams, that may be where some of the reports are coming from. And that's a good point. But I just, whenever in anything with Drury, I'm like, you know what? I know he's very tight. This is just who he is. He's very methodical and doesn't want stuff out there. So I never believe anything until the Rangers make an announcement. So, all right, let's see if we can get Johnny Lazarus. I see him sitting there in our virtual waiting room. Why don't we get him in? And this is our favorite guest, probably, or up there for sure on the Mount Rushmore of MYPB guests. This is Johnny Lazarus. How are you, Johnny?
What's going on, fellas? I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for that very nice Mount Rushmore comment.
That was on the fly. And with you, you are doing a million things like I see on my social media. I don't even know how to introduce you anymore. I'm literally lost. Like, you used to be a lot easier to introduce a year and a half ago.
Yeah, things have definitely gotten much busier. I'm heading to Vegas tomorrow for the final, so definitely covering the league a little bit more as a whole now, as opposed to just the Rangers. So I've obviously been in the mix and I've heard a lot about what's going on in the coaching realm, but there's still a lot of things that I'm questioning that I don't think a decision has been made, but I could be wrong because everyone's hearing a bunch of different things, and I know that's not even close to what you just asked me, but thought I'd just put that out there.
Well, we're gonna head there. So why don't we head there now? So actually, Johnny, let's take a step back because I haven't had you on since the Devils series. You played competitive hockey. You played D1 hockey. So you understand the game as a player, but you also understand the game as a reporter because you're young, right? And your career has grown leaps and bounds in 18 months since we've known you. So you're obviously doing a good job as a reporter. You've played the game. You've been in locker rooms. You've been affiliated with coaches. What do you think the Devils did differently in the second half of the series from an adjustment point of view that the Rangers couldn't figure out?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it was necessarily an adjustment thing. I think the Devils were that team that we saw the entire season after games 1 and 2. I don't think it was really the Devils made this adjustment, did that, and really changed their game to get the best of the Rangers. Like, the Devils just didn't show up in games 1 and 2. The Devils team we saw the rest of that series was the Devils team that I watched all year. I don't think it was any changes that were made. And obviously you can talk to Kara Schmidt, who came in and was that calming presence in goal. And for me, I think as the series went on and as the Devils won game 3, they won game 4, the Devils' confidence rose and the Rangers' confidence dwindled. And I think that was the biggest difference. To me, like, it wasn't necessarily X's and O's. Sure, the Devils, executed better, but I don't think they changed how they played. They were a team that was strong off the rush, that was good at 5-on-5, created opportunities from Jack Hughes skating the puck in the offensive zone with possession. And, they were a team that possessed the puck in the offensive zone and created off the offensive zone possession that I'm alluding to right now. And, that's how they scored their goals in the playoffs. They obviously also capitalized on odd man rushes, and the Rangers had to take more chances because they were down. And I think the bottom line is that the Rangers forwards weren't finishing and the Devils forwards took advantage of the opportunities. I think the Devils were the better team in the regular season. Like, that's the exact outcome we saw for the most of the regular season, right, when they played each other. So I don't think it was anything different in the playoffs, except the Rangers came out and produced in games 1 and 2 and then completely fell apart the rest of the series. That's really, all it was in my mind.
So the series ends. Now Gallant is fired a week or so later, or actually 5 days later, because the series ends on a Monday. He's fired on Saturday late afternoon. Are you surprised he was fired?
Yes and no. I thought the press conferences were a little bit telling. He seemed a little bit nervous in his responses about his job being questioned, which, understandably so. I think most people would, especially after, 2 years, one going to the conference final and one you go to game 7. And obviously it doesn't go your way, but 2 pretty strong seasons. I still do think that, the play of Igor Shesterkin last year, or the 2021-22 season, somewhat disguised the lack of coaching, I think, in Gallant a little bit. But, this year was a little bit more inconsistent throughout the entire season. And then, the playoffs were completely inconsistent in that first round. So, I think maybe Gallant could have had one more year to try and do this thing. But I think right now Drury is just under a lot of pressure with this win now expectation after what happened in 21-22. Going to the conference final changes the entire standard, I think, of the organization. So Drury obviously is aware of that and knows that this team needs the right voice that's going to get it done in the next 2 to 3 years. So I don't blame him for firing him. It definitely was a surprise that it was a Saturday afternoon, though. I was not expecting that. So I was caught off guard when the news came out. But I think, most people saw the writing on the wall.
Okay. So now it takes us to today. We're at the end of May. And if teams are going to make announcements, normally in this situation, it comes before the start of the Stanley Cup Finals. So you would think that if the Rangers, if the decision is imminent, and we don't know if it is, but let's say it is, then it's got to happen here in the next 4 days, because the Stanley Cup Final, I believe, is what? Saturday night is game 1?
Saturday. Yep.
So you're in Vegas for quite a while then, huh?
I'll be in Vegas for like 5 days, and I've never been, so it's my first time going. I'm really excited to be there. Yes, and then obviously going to Florida after and whatnot. But
it may not be the 2 best markets for ratings, but if I'm Johnny Lazarus and I want 2 cities to go to, Vegas and Miami, he had no problem with that, right? I mean,
no problem at all. Yeah, this is awesome.
All right. So now we're at a point where he's at some point here has to hire a coach, and you would like to think at least, at worst, you need the coach in place by the end of June for a draft, if not before, obviously. To me, the one thing I have said, and a lot of people on Instagram agreed with us in this term, is that just not a retread, right? Peter Lavalette, which seems the last couple of days to be gaining more and more steam out there and traction. And again, Chris Drury, I don't believe anything until stuff's done. But Peter Lavalette, to me, is the quintessential definition of a retread. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so, right? He's been around the league since I've been alive. So, he's coached now. I think the Rangers would be his 5th team in the Metropolitan Division. Obviously, the divisions have shaken up in that time, but he's been to Stanley Cups. He won a cup in 06 with the Hurricanes. He went to the final with the Flyers in 2010. He went to the final in 2017 with the Predators. Like, he's been there and done it, but he hasn't done it, so recently. Obviously he's a great coach, a proven winner, but I still don't know if he's the right choice. I think, just by resume, he might be the best candidate right now that's out there, which is the same thing as Gerard Gallant was when the Rangers hired him, right? He might have not been the best fit, but he was the best candidate at the time. And that's just what happens when it comes to making coaches' decisions, right? Like sometimes it's not always the best fit, but it's the best available. And, that's something that Drury could be guilty of if they do hire Laviolette.
Right. And this is what I had said before you came on is in sports, when you make a coaching change, you're subject to whatever the market is at that time. Right.
Mhm.
And this to me is not the year in terms when you look at the coaching market to be making a change in some ways because there's no real hot candidate out there. My choice from day one has been Knobloch. My thought is you need a coach that's going to play the kids because I don't know how long you're going to give Kako and Lafreniere to live up to some sort of expectation here. So to me, Knobloch, who has to his credit, some people that will tell you he's good at developing young talent. That's what they need, and maybe a fresh voice. Bringing Peter Laviolette in, to me is just, I don't know. I just can't get excited about it. I understand it, and you're right. He may be the best of what's out there. I'm not saying there's another real option that Drury's not looking at. I don't want Quenneville, right? I think even if you can get past what happened with him, it's a logistical PR nightmare potentially putting him in the city with what happened, right? So I don't think the Rangers want to deal with that. Babcock does not excite me at all. I mean, I'd almost rather you coach the team, Johnny, than Mike Babcock. There's not. I mean, do you take a chance on a Jay Leach or Halpern in Tampa? There's just not a lot out there. What is your choice? If you were Drury, who do you hire?
It's really difficult, and I'm kind of the same where I'm not really excited about anybody. I think just the coaches that I've gone through, I think in the last, decade plus of being a Rangers fan and now, being more of the reporter side. I don't have a name that necessarily stands out, but there's a personality that I'm looking for, and it's someone who can keep players accountable. And by that, I don't mean just yelling at them or being hard on them or benching them in a time of need, but it's someone who can get through to the top guys, right? Because we've seen now Panarin has come out and basically said that he somewhat crumbles under the pressure of the playoffs, right? Like he had a whole statement about how he lost his entire confidence as the series went on this year. And, when a player is outspoken about that, you need someone that can come in and make them feel that they're at their best when they're not. I think we're in a day and age where it's so important for coaches to be able to get through to their players, not only as players, but as people as well. And I don't know if Gallant was necessarily able to do that. I think he was great in supporting the players, but on the other side, he only really held the team accountable maybe like 4 or 5 times in the 2 years where he came out to the media and said, like, we were terrible. We need to be better. A lot of it was like moral victories, which no coach or no player really needs as well. So, like the name that stands out, and I mean, listen, I don't want to dive too deep in the Quenneville thing. I do think there is more information that hasn't come out to the public about it in regards to that. But, I think just coaching specifically, when you talk about coaching in Quenneville, I don't know if there's many better coaches out there that get through to star players like he's been able to.
I would 100. Well, let me just say one thing. I would agree with you completely, right? So I'm not taking a side of what he did and what happened in Chicago is bad enough that I don't want him or that I forgive him. Like, I'm not getting involved in that. I try to stay away from controversial topics. But I do think where you may be onto something is Drury sitting here, like if he wanted Laviolette, he could have done it already.
Mm-hmm.
If he wanted Knobloch in Hartford, he could have done it already. Is he waiting on Quenneville to see if there's a reinstatement from the league?
I've been told that the Rangers, I tweeted this out like a week ago, that I was led to believe that the Rangers are waiting till that conversation happens. And I haven't heard anything as far as an update of that conversation. So that's why I'm not like out there tweeting right now the Rangers are pushing toward Laviolette, because I really, I've obviously heard that rumor, but I don't know if I believe it. There's still things that, and listen, now is an easy time to just create conversation, right? There's so many hypotheticals and so many different things that you can create discussion over, but I'm just not one to do that until I have a reason to. So I've kind of been, listening here and there on what's being talked about, and I'm not jumping to any conclusions, but what I was trying to say is the coaching style like Quenneville is what I would like personally. I think he's just a guy who has dealt with so much talent, which is what the Rangers are, right? They're a team that's full of a ton of talent, and they have to now buy into something and become more of a team as opposed to individual talent. And I think someone who can get through to these guys as people and get the most out of Panarin, give Lafreniere and give Kakko that opportunity is what the Rangers need. It's not some hardo that's going to come in and yell and just try to motivate with words and speeches and whatnot. Like the Rangers, I don't think they need that.
No.
But they need a mix of it, right? So listen, I think it's obviously tough to give a guy like Jay Leach the opportunity. Like a guy that I thought maybe had a possibility earlier on in the search was Jay Pandolfo, who's been at BU for a year, but he was an assistant in Boston for a long time. He played a long NHL career. I've been told that that's no longer a possibility, that he's going to stay at BU. So it's hard, right? Because you want to go to a proven winner, because we look at this 2-3 year window, and if they don't get it done, it's a waste of, what could have been the best Rangers roster ever assembled aside from that 94 team. And, if they don't win in 2-3 years, then what? You firing the coach they hired today? Like, I think you want to build somebody that's going to not only elevate the group right now, but elevate the group over the next 5 to 7 years, as opposed to 2 to 3, right? You want to build a continuous championship contender, not just a one and done kind of run. So, that's why I don't lean toward Laviolette. I think Laviolette could get them over the hump at some point, but is it going to be consistent, or is it just one championship and that's it?
Right.
So
for that coach, whoever it is, how important then to what you said is it that a prerequisite for them is to play the Lafrenières of the world, the Kakkos, that they're on the same page? How important is that for whoever the coach is?
Well, 1,000%. I think, one of the things this year that the Rangers steered away from was having Kakko up with Kreider and Zibanejad. Like, that was a great line in the beginning of the season. I know they weren't producing at the rate that we all thought they would, but they were creating a ton of scoring chances. And I'd have to think that Kakko was going to break through at some point. I think they were like leading the NHL at expected goals of 5-on-5 for the first 2 months of the season. And then they were split up, which you can't blame the head coach for if they're not producing. Like, why keep them together? But Kakko has shown that he's able to play with the top guys, and Lafreniere didn't get as much of an opportunity, but I'd love to see both of them do that. And Kreider can play basically anywhere in the lineup. Obviously, he also thrives in the power play. So it's a really tough team to not only lead, but I think it's tough to just get the most out of everyone when there is so much talent in this room, and a lot of guys who have played, bigger roles, more minutes in the past, and now they're somewhat having to adjust to roles they haven't really been used to. So it's not an easy task to coach the New York Rangers right now. That is for sure, even though there is a ton of talent. But, at the same point, I think anyone that was able to get this opportunity would jump at it, right? Like, who wouldn't want to coach this team? Because I think if it is the right voice and it is the right person, how far this team can go is just, the moon, right? Like, I think they're, just one piece of the puzzle away from being this incredible contender. And I think we just need the person that can push the right buttons.
I would agree. All right, so let's shift gears to more NHL, other topics, and the Stanley Cup Finals, which will get underway in Sin City, Nevada, on Saturday night between the 8th seed, the wild card 2, Florida Panthers taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of Florida every time, and we had this discussion with our producer outside in the parking lot before, is the Matthew Tkachuk for Huberdeau trade last year, right? I mean, now I don't ever recall a trade. I don't want to say it was one-sided at the time, because it wasn't. I don't know who I would have told you I've won it. But now, I mean, the stock of Matthew Tkachuk is through the roof. Tell me a little bit now. Were you at UMass? Because the brothers played at BU, right? They're both BU kids, right?
Brady played BU. Matthew played in London with Mitch Marner in the OHL, I believe, actually.
Okay. I knew Brady was BU, because as you remember, I went there way before you. Mm-hmm. So are you surprised at how good he has been in the playoffs? I mean, we knew he was good, but did we know he was this good?
Well, I mean, he's been on a tear since after the All-Star break. And if we're going back to the trade, I still, I thought Huberdeau was the best player in that trade. Like last year, I thought Huberdeau carried the Florida offense. I think everyone said Huberdeau, Barkov, but I thought Barkov thrived off of what Huberdeau did. So I was really surprised how lopsided this was in regards to what Florida got, because, Florida sent over a haul for Matthew Tkachuk, Huberdeau, Weegar, Schwint, and I think a 4th conditional pick or something like that, just for Matthew Tkachuk. So obviously, they thought very highly of Tkachuk. I thought Tkachuk might have thrived a little bit from playing with Johnny Gaudreau last year in Calgary. Obviously I knew he was a great player, but I didn't think he was up to this caliber. And I think most people would tell you that if they're not, I think they're probably lying. But he's just able to do everything, right? Like, he stirs the pot, gets in the mix, throws the body, creates plays, finishes. He's not afraid of the big moments. So
No,
This
not-
kid, as far as a player, like, it's easy to say that, I think every team would want him and every team hates playing against him. But I haven't seen someone play like this, I think, since like, Brad Marchand in his peak, right? Where he's just like everywhere, all times at once, doing everything. I think, those are the only two guys I can really think of that play that certain style. Maybe like a prime Corey Perry as well. I think Kachuk always said like he models his game after Corey Perry. So, there's only a certain amount of people in the NHL that can do what he's doing. And, it's obviously incredible. And I don't think anyone could have seen this coming with that trade. But yeah, I mean, what this kid has done is, I think it's what every hockey fan would dream of in a player to root for.
Yeah, and on the other side, the Vegas side, the two things that I think of are Jack Eichel, right? I mean, obviously, you remember as a Ranger fan 2 years ago, you were on the show, are the Rangers going to make a move for him? They were rumored, all this stuff, Jack Eichel, Jack Eichel. And the other thing that I don't think is getting attention, and hopefully you guys or someone in the media cover it, is Bruce Cassidy, right? I mean, the guy leaves Boston. He had a ton of success there. I mean, he really did. Every year they were good. They just didn't have playoff success. So he obviously proved he's a good coach. Now he's in the first year out in Vegas, and he's in the Cup final. I mean, the guy is a solid coach, right? So I mean, deserves a lot of credit for that. Are you allowed in your position to make predictions? Like, or
I
like
think
thoughts
so.
on this? Okay, all right. So, what is the official Johnny Lazarus Stanley Cup final prediction?
Well,
Winner
also,
and game.
yeah, to your point, I think, we talked a lot about Bruce Cassidy on the show last night specifically. He's been, incredible, I think, throughout these playoffs. And as far as my series prediction goes, I can't pick against Florida. I can't. I've done it every series so far, and they've proven me wrong every series. So I have to now just jump on their bandwagon, and what they've done is magical. And I think, it's clear that they're a team of destiny right now. So I'm saying the Panthers win it, and I think they do it on home ice in 6 games. But I'm rooting for it to go 7 because I want to keep this 3-week vacation and work trip going.
Right. You want to go back. You want to go back to
Yeah.
Vegas for the 7th game. I don't blame
Yeah.
you. I'd be rooting the same thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. We're going to bring in a question someone wrote in for you, although it's going back to the Rangers. So Nikolai, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, wrote, joining late. Not sure if the name has been dropped, but thoughts on Bob Hartley given his history with Drury and winning history. It's a good question.
Yeah,
For
but
you?
I think it's similar to the topic, what we were talking about before, right? A retread. Like, it's just, an older voice. Like, I think the NHL is getting younger and newer, fresher voices in the league. So I think this is just, another typical case of that. Like, it's not necessarily an upgrade. It's more of a lateral move, I would say. But, obviously Bob Hartley's had a phenomenal career, and no discredit to him. It's just, I think the direction that we're heading in the game of hockey needs younger and fresher voices, especially in coaching, and newer ways of thinking.
Yeah. So, and then a comment just now on the Stanley Cup final to what you said. The X factor is Hill. He was able to shut the door on Connor and Leon, being obviously referring to Edmonton. Yeah. I mean, goaltending always wins.
I actually want to defend that. I think the X factor has been William Karlsson. He's been phenomenal as a third line center for Vegas. Not only is he shutting down those players, because he was the one on the ice trying to stop Connor and Leon, right? Like 5-on-5, like that was his job. And now he's scoring goals too. Like, he stepped it up in this series against Dallas. He scored 2 last night. He's got 10 in the playoffs and 17 games. William Karlsson, someone we've been talking about, that's been an under the radar Conn Smythe candidate too, just because of how strong he plays the 200-foot game. He's been incredible. Aiden Hill has been phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but I think Vegas, to the point of Bruce Cassidy, has made so many in-game adjustments. And, last night Vegas came out, they were guns blazing. They were the ones that were taking the game to Dallas. And sure, Aiden Hill had a shutout. He was fine, but Vegas didn't give Dallas a chance to even like remotely get back in that game. They were dominant. They were all over the Stars last night.
Yeah, they were. So the official prediction of Johnny Lazarus is
Florida in 6.
Florida in 6. Although secretly he wants it in 7. Go ahead.
Will that be the lowest seed to ever win the Stanley Cup?
Has to be. Yeah. Well, they would. They could tie it, but they are the lowest seed in the playoffs. The wild card too. I don't remember.
The 2012 Kings were the 8th seed too. They won.
So was well, you know what? When Peter I'm pretty sure on this one, Lavalette won the cup in Carolina in 2006. They played Edmonton in the finals, and Edmonton was an 8 seed, so they were one game away. Because I'm pretty sure that series went to 7, and if I remember correctly, they were an 8 seed, Edmonton, and they'd gotten all the way. I think McTavish may have been their coach, actually. Craig McTavish, if the final face-off for the Rangers in '94. Johnny, thank you for joining us as always. Enjoy Viva Las Vegas and Miami. I mean, man, you really lucked out. It's better than Winnipeg and like Seattle, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, this is like the dream scenario. Obviously,
It is.
unless the Rangers were in it, but yeah, I'm not.
enjoy it, my
not
friend. You
complaining.
deserve it. You do good stuff. We appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks. So that is Johnny Lazarus, and that is some good insight with the Rangers. It's no one knows here what you want to believe, right? Like, and I said this. I know someone. This is not a source, but I know someone who thinks that that he has indications that there's an announcement coming today. What the announcement is, I don't know. It could just be that popcorn is now going up to $4.50 at the Garden. Who knows what the announcement is? There could be no announcement. The Rangers do everything so tight to the vest that it's very hard to believe anything you read with this franchise until anything is done.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually here, Chris Drury is going to have to make a move. Like eventually, you know what? Something happens. So
when does practice start?
So the preseason in hockey will start again in September, but
there's stuff that needs to be done.
You need your offseason work done with a coach because you got to play to the coach's system. So there's also the argument, and people have said this, and this could be true. Chris Drury has already begun his offseason work. It's been 3.5 weeks. He needs to know what coach is going to be coaching his team to be able to be doing the offseason work. He knows who the coach is. He hasn't made the move yet. I don't know. It's strange. I think the Rangers, unfortunately, are in a situation, and I'd love to be wrong about this, where they, the year that they happen to change the coach is not the year of a really good, appealing coaching market.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I go for the little guy, the guy in the B League.
You like Knobloch, my choice. Yeah. And I was surprised, when we put that clip up on Instagram, I thought, and I was wrong, obviously, I thought that I wouldn't have a lot of support for that, but I was shocked in the comments. If you read all the comments, how many people agreed that Knobloch, because normally you want a bigger name. You don't want like a first-time guy. And as Chris wrote in before, it didn't work out with David Quinn, who was a guy to develop talent, which is absolutely right. So my thought was people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. It was just my opinion. But I was surprised at how many people actually thought Knobloch is the answer. But I don't know. I'm beginning to think the longer that this goes on, the less likely it has to be Knobloch, because you could have made that move already, right? He's employed by your team right now. It's just a promotion. You could have moved him up a week ago. I mean, by now, that Knobloch was a choice. It's been 3.5 weeks. You also know the guy. He works for your organization. If he's not the head coach by now, he's probably not going to be.
True.
So some people think it's an announcement's coming today, and that Lavalette's the favorite. So
we shall see.
We shall see. The Stanley Cup Finals, we'll go a little bit more in depth with it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when it was the Final Four. From a hockey market point of view, South Florida and Vegas is not, overly exciting. It's not a Canadian team. It's not really a major market. Some of the original six, like New York, Chicago, Boston, Detroit, or anything like that. But it should be an appealing finals, right? I mean, Florida's story to get from in the playoffs in the last day and then become a team that knocks off the best regular season team ever, to then dispatching the Maple Leafs in 5 games, to then sweeping the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, it's a great story. You have that storyline. Vegas, obviously, the thing with Vegas, this is the franchise's 6th full season, right? So they're still a relatively new franchise, right? This is now their 2nd Stanley Cup Finals. They've got Jack Eichel. They've got some other guys out there, Stone, Hill in goal. It's been a really good story. Cassidy, the coach we talked about with Johnny. There are some storylines here. If you're a hockey fan, and someone asked me this yesterday, well, are you even going to watch the Stanley Cup Final? I don't care what 2 teams are in the Stanley Cup Final. Of course I'm going to watch. It's also the last hockey we get for 3 months, so you better watch. Why don't we pull up this comment? And I don't know what it is, so I'm afraid I can't. I didn't read it yet, so I was afraid. But go ahead. The bottom one. Yeah, I can't really see. 2 years out, 3, whatever. Whoever's the first kid that will get a change of scenery, even though we would love to keep that. Who is the first kid that will get a change of scenery? That's a tough question. And I'm going to say this. I'm actually go for backup here. If Chris is still watching the show, because he knows this stuff, if he wants to put in the comments, we'll bring up his answer too. I think it's probably Capo Caco, right? I mean, I think that you're going to I'm between Caco and Lafreniere, and I would think it's Caco. I think you'd be more likely right now to give Lafreniere a little bit of a longer leash here. But yeah, I mean, it's probably Kako, and here's what you can expect. Carl, I'm assuming is your first name. I think it's just backwards in your handle. What you can expect is whatever kid gets a change of scenery first is going to be do really well, right? And prove the Rangers wrong. Like, he scores 25 career goals here with the Rangers, and in his first season, wherever he is, he scores 35. I mean, it would be so incredibly fitting. It is amazing. So, all right. So before we go, you brought it up before, so
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it up. We were not going to cover it, but we'll cover it, and that is Game 7 last night of a different sport, basketball.
Yes.
The Miami Heat advanced to actually another South Florida 8 seed, advancing like the Florida Panthers to get to the finals. They will take on the Denver Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
I got out of so I was really locked into the playoffs when the Knicks were in. Like, I was locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will admit, so the difference for me is when the Knicks are eliminated, I know what's going on, but I lose interest. With hockey, I'll stay interested in who's ever still in.
Mm-hmm.
Denver seems like it is real. Jokic is on a tear, right? I mean, they sweep the Lakers. They beat Phoenix the round before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, who did they beat round 1?
I don't know.
I'll have to look that up. B-Rock, do you know who they beat in round 1? No, I'm going to look it up. We'll look it up. But they seem to be really on a complete roll here. So I think it's hard to go against them. But Miami. Minnesota, right. Yeah, I'm sure that was probably a sweep, right? I mean, I can't imagine it was close.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they won. Yes, it was close. It was not really a competitive series. I'm looking at it now. We'll go back to that last comment, and then we're going to wrap it up. We'll go Chris, who I called out for help for. If it's a forward, it wouldn't be shocked to see Kako packaged for a bigger name right wing. Not that I agree, but that's the New York Ranger way, and it is. And the New York Ranger way, Chris, to that would be that they also will do really well whenever they get packaged away. And Boston is the first city to lose at home in Game 7 to 8 seeds in both the NBA and NHL. Wow. And not only did they lose in both sports to the 8 seed in Game 7 at home, both to South Florida teams.
Wow.
So if you're from South Florida and you're planning a trip to Beantown, you're probably not going to be welcome really well. But don't worry, those New Englanders, they'll come down and infiltrate Miami in the winter months with what they deal with up there. So stay tuned. We will try to keep you updated again whenever the Rangers make their decision on the coach. We will we'll cover it as best we can, as we always do. And then once that's done, we actually slowly here, as the Stanley Cup Finals will end in 2 weeks, we'll dive right into offseason mode with what the Rangers do, because I believe NHL free agency traditionally was always, it was always July 1st. And then with COVID the last couple of years and the season starting late and ending late, it was more mid-July.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling it is back to July 1st. Let's see. It is back to July 1st. Yes. It is. It looks like it is back to July 1st. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Patrick Kane is obviously a free agent. Tarasenko is a free agent. So you have a lot of players out there right now that are out there, and going to be some moves for Chris Drury to make aside from the coach. That is it today. We appreciate you listening as always. We appreciate the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship of our show. You can check them out at thebamboozleproject.com. As I mentioned before, use that special 4-letter promo code MYPB to unlock a mystery 25% off. It would be cool if we had a promo code and it was like, Plinko or like Prices Right, where you don't know,
what you're gonna get.
You pay for it, right? That, you pay for it, and then you don't know, like, did I just get 90% off or did I get 5% off?
Yeah,
it would be like appealing.
That's very appealing.
And the MYPB gear, someone said this to me last week when I was out and about, that the water bottle, I guess there's a water bottle on there. Is that true?
Yeah,
there is. That the water bottle on there is really good. They use it wherever they go. Whether that means the gym or they are doing anything active, that I don't know, but they said they use they told me they use the MYPB water bottle wherever they go. So I'm glad to see that. Yes, we are still waiting. It looks like the NHL will open up free agency on July 1st. That is not confirmed yet, but it looks like they're going to go back to that, the non-COVID aspect of it. Anything else from you today, sir, before we
No.
wrap it up?
No, it's a very nice weekend of sports. Lots and lots of sports.
Yes. And as always, we thank the veterans of this country, people that serve for Memorial Day. We can never lose sight of that. We thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time.